Today we're going to try to recreate a video game that I thought was really cool when I was about your age. I used to go to play video games in the old days. We would travel by car or bicycle to a place called an arcade. This is one of the many arcade games that I loved when I was a kid. It's a game called Seawolf. And I'll give you a quick preview of what Seawolf looks like.
And you have 60 seconds to shoot as many boats you can hit. That one is the warship, that's 300. That up there is the freighter, that's 100.
All right, so as you can see, basically it involves ships traveling back and forth across the screen, and then you firing some kind of projectile at the ship. In this case, normally when you're doing battle with ships, you send torpedoes. So anyways, let's take a look and see if we can begin to create our own little version of Seawolf. It won't be quite as detailed as what we just saw, but it should be cool. So anyways, just like always, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put a hashtag with some comment that describes what we're trying to do. And we're going to go ahead and save this. Go ahead and click on the 3 bars and do Save As, and then Seawolf. If you want to add the number 1, that's fine, but whatever. Actually, you know what? For this one, I think I am going to ask you to put the number 1 in the name when you hit Save, because what we're going to do is I think I might make this into several videos where we add layers and features and complexity to the game. Rather than me trying to make one long video that has everything in it. The concern that I have is that if I make one really long video, you might get part of the way through it and it might not work and you might get frustrated. So my hope is that if I can make shorter videos, you can kind of save a version, save each version as we go along, so that you'll always have something that's working that you can go back to in case you make a mistake and you need to redo some part of this. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully you saved this as Seawolf 1. We're going to start. I'm going to go ahead and in comments, I'd like you to follow along and I'd like you to type these comments because I think it's a good habit. If you're going to do a creative task and you're going to have to use your imagination, I think the absolute worst thing to do is try to just start writing code. What you want to do is you want to come up with a plan. So that's what I'm going to show you. I'm going to model how to make a plan. I know that in the Seawolf game, I'm going to need to create a player. I'm going to use keys to move the player back and forth, left and right. In fact, maybe we'll say left and right to be perfectly clear. Enter. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to create an enemy ship that races across the screen. And either from right to left or left to right. We'll start off with from right to left. And the other thing we'd really like to do is allow the user of our game, our software, to hit the space bar to fire a torpedo at enemy ships. And that's kind of the gist of it. I mean, there will be more details as we go along, but I think it's really important to have a plan before you start writing code. You really got to think about stuff up front before you do it. In general, it's a good way to live your life. Think about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the player as a regular polygon. And maybe you'll see why in a minute why I decided to go with regular polygon. And we'll put that player near the bottom of the screen in the center, 200, 350. We'll give it a radius of 10 and the number of points will be 3, so it'll turn out to be a triangle. And then we'll set the color to blue. And of course, you can change these things and kind of make them your own. You know, if you have ideas along the way and you want to personalize, there's nothing wrong with that. The other thing is we'll make an enemy, which will actually be a ship, but for now I'll just call him the enemy. And we'll make that a rectangle for no good reason. I just don't feel like much more creative than that. We'll make the rectangle so it starts near the top of the screen, near the left side. So 0 is the left side and 50 is the top of the screen. We'll make a width of 20 and a height of 5, so it'll be kind of have a profile like a ship. And then we'll use a fill equal to red in color. And again, if you want to change the colors around, you're welcome to, or the size or the shapes. Let's see what else. The other thing is we're going to need to make a torpedo. And the torpedo, I'm just going to make it as an oval. And again, there's a variety of different options for how you could do it. By the way, if we really want to have fun with this, we could make the player and the enemy ship and the torpedo out of multiple shapes and just make them into groups. And then we could make some really interesting looking shapes that would really add fun to the game. So anyways, we're going to put the torpedo initially right where the player is. So I'm going to use the player.center X and the player.center Y in order to set the X and Y, the center X and the center Y positions for the oval, for the torpedo. In other words, I want the torpedo to be centered on the player at all times, but certainly at the beginning. Okay, so what else? We will make the torpedo with a width of 3 and a height of 10. So it'll be, you'll see it in a minute. And then we will set the color equal to black. I'm not sure we even need to say that because I think the default is black. And what else about the torpedo? Oh, initially we'll oh, you know what? I'm going to get rid of the fill equals black because I want you to see this. We're just going to say visible equals false because initially the torpedo shouldn't show up until I go to fire it. Okay, so I mostly have the pieces in place to get going on this game. Let's go ahead and write some code that will allow us to move the player around. So we're going to make a function called onKeyHold, and we'll accept a parameter called keys. And that will be whatever keys you press, they will be stored in keys, and then we can then write some code that will respond to those keys. We'll start off with if write in keys. Let's go ahead and make the player dot center X plus equals 5. That will move the player, that'll move the center of the player, the X position of the player center. It'll move it a little bit to the right. And just to make sure that the torpedo launches from the ship, let's go ahead and set the torpedo center X so that it is equal to the player.center X. So it'll follow the player. And then we're going to do the same thing for the left key, but I don't feel like typing all that again. So I'm going to move my cursor up to the beginning of line 12, hold the shift key down, and then down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, and then control C, and then down arrow and control V, and voila, I just saved myself a lot of effort. Now, make sure that your ifs are lined up, and make sure that your, the code that's under the ifs are lined up as well. Otherwise, you're going to get some indent error or unindent error. Okay, let's go ahead and change this right key to left. Oh, I have caps lock on. Turn that off. To let's try that. Left. There we go. And then what we're going to do is we'll move the center minus equals 5. And again, we'll set the torpedo center X equal to the player.center X. Yay. Okay, what next? Then let's make it so that the torpedo gets fired if we press this space key. So tab if. By the way, I probably could have copied, but it's different enough where I think I'll just retype this from scratch. And if the space key is pressed, then something should happen. And I'm not quite ready to to know exactly what's going to happen yet. So let's just put in pass for now. And let's go ahead and make it so, let's see here. I think what I'm going to do is I would like to just go ahead and make it so that the player can move. Let's go ahead and test it out. So I'm going to go ahead and hit run. And, let's get rid of this guy by clicking somewhere on the blue, but don't click on the link. Just click over here on the blue so it goes away, okay? If you click on the link, then it makes it full screen, and then we lose the stuff at the top. So I like to get rid of that blue screen by just clicking somewhere on it other than the link. Anyways, let's see what else. Let's go ahead and hit run. And let's go ahead. Oh, and you can see that the enemy is up here, and you can see the players down here. Let's go ahead and test out moving to the right and moving to the left. And so far, so good. Yay. Okay, great. Now, we're going to get into some slightly more advanced stuff than what you've seen so far. You see, we would like the enemy ship to move on its own, and we would like the torpedo to move on its own. And if we want those things to happen, then we need to do something new. And this something new is a concept that is introduced in Unit 6. So, and by the way, the concept is called animation. And more specifically, we do animation using a function called onstep. So, so I'm going to go back to my code and type DEF, lowercase on, uppercase S, TEP, parentheses, and then colon, enter. And this is a super powerful new function that we're going to learn about. It allows us to make non-player characters or background stuff that can move on its own without us having to do anything. It's going to be really neat. We're going to start off with the idea of launching the torpedo. And if we want to launch the torpedo, there's a few ways we can do it. I can write the code right here in the on step, but I'd like to get you guys used to the idea of making some helper functions. So we're going to go DEF. We're going to make a new function, DEF, and I'm going to call it fire torpedo. And then we need some parentheses, even though we're not going to give it any parameters. And then enter. And then there's some stuff we'd like to check for. Well, let's do this. But aside from checking for some things, we would like to do this. We would like to make the torpedo dot visible equals true. That would be great. When we want to fire the torpedo, it'd be great if we could see it. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to go torpedo dot center y minus equals 10. So that will move the torpedo up. Now, this won't do anything unless we call fire torpedo. So I'm going to need some code. And one of the things we're going to do is in the on key hold where we said if space in keys, we're going to replace that pass statement. And what we're going to do is we're going to say if space in keys, we're going to say torpedo dot launch equals true. Now, dot launch is nothing that you've seen so far in CMU. It's called a custom property, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the torpedo, and I'm going to add a new custom property, torpedo. By the way, custom properties need to have names that are different from any of the CMU reserved keywords. So, turns out that nowhere in CMU is the word launch used, so we can make it as a custom property. So, I'm going to set torpedo.launch initially equal to false, and that's because we haven't launched it yet. Only after we press space do we want it to be launched. So now what we're going to do is put several things together. In the onStep function, we're going to check to see if torpedo.launch equal true. If torpedo.launch is true, we will then fire torpedo. And we need both parentheses in order to call the fire torpedo function that we defined here in my line 22. Okay, I think this will mostly work. And when I'm done with this, we're gonna save this version and we're gonna call it quits. and then I'll make another video where we expand on this and add some functionality that you would expect in a video game. But let's see how this goes. I'm going to go ahead and hit run, and then I'm going to move the player back and forth, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit the space key. Woo! Do you see what I see? That ain't bad, huh? Oh, I just hit the space key again, and the torpedo's gone. I'm going to have to hit run, and then we'll move around, and then we'll hit the space key. Something else I want you to see. After I hit the space key, I can use the right and left arrows to move the torpedo, and the reason for that is because I am... every time I hit the left and the right key, I reset the torpedo to the same position, X position as the player. So one more time, run, hit the space key, and move the torpedo with the right and left keys. Okay, so I hope you find that to be super fun and intriguing. The next thing we need to do is we need to move the enemy ship across the screen, and we'd like to detect a collision between the torpedo and the enemy ship. And then we'd like to have an explosion and maybe even have a score that we could increase. But for now, we've done an awful lot, and I'm already 16 minutes into the video. So I would like you to, let's call this quits. Let's make sure that you go and hit save, or actually you don't have to because it's kind of auto-saving every few seconds. But, you know what I would like you to do? Let's do this. I would like you to go save as, and this time you're going to call it Seawolf 2. By doing this, when you hit save, what'll happen is that last version of Seawolf that we created, the one called Seawolf 1, we will no longer be changing it. We will no longer be messing with it. So if it's working perfectly, we can always go back to it and add to it. If for some reason you have problems following me in the code for Seawolf 2. Anyways, let's go ahead and hit save on Seawolf 2. And if you do that, then we should now be working on Seawolf 2. You know what? Actually, I think maybe just so that I'm going to try to make sure that I'm with you on this. I'm going to go ahead and say save as. I'm going to save this as Seawolf 1 for my own purposes. You should not do this. I'm going to hit save. And then so I will preserve that version in case you don't. And then I will save Seawolf 2 so that when I make the next video, I'm starting at the exact same point as you, and I have Seawolf 1 as a backup just like you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, and if you finish this, you need to call me over and show me that you finished this if you would like to continue to get credit for watching my videos and writing code. It does have an influence on your grade. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye for now.